Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven. A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at ubenradio.com.
Hi guys, this is Sunny Chayes, and you are with me today on UBN and Singing in the Rain with my favorite tagline, The Power of One. I am very, very, very grateful to be here today. I've done many, many shows in my life up until this point, and all of this has brought me to this day because I have Michael Bernard Beckwith with me on this show, and this is just a very, very perfect and exciting at this time in our human existence that we have Michael speaking with me. He's the founder and spiritual director of the Agape International Spiritual Center, the author of one of my favorite books, Spiritual Liberation, and the originator of the life visioning process. And so let us, without any further ado, bring Michael on. May we do that? Let's do it. Is Michael on?
I'm here.
Hi, Michael. Perfect. Hi. Before we actually start, part of my introduction to you is that I want to tell you that I am so grateful and so appreciative for what you do, what Agape does, and how the whole environment and your message has affected so many people in the world, many you'll probably never meet or know. I think of people like Susan Burton from A New Way of Life, people who have had all kinds of life challenges and experiences and have come to Agape and literally have changed their lives, which has in turn changed so many lives of others. So thank you and bless you for that.
It's absolutely my joy. We're going into our 29th year.
Is that possible?
It is. I don't know how that became possible, but I founded Agape in November of 1986.
Oh my goodness.
And it has been unfolding since then. So like you say, I don't have the opportunity now to meet many of the people who've been affected by the Agape broadcast. Mm-hmm. They're all over the world. I run into them in airports and conferences and workshops and things of that particular nature. But now there's more than, as you indicated, more than I'll probably ever meet. And that's makes my heart sing.
I'm so glad. And speaking of that, now you're getting more into singing with your wife, Ricky. So that's pretty cool. I love to see, I mean, you say you've been doing this for 29 years, but the joy and the vitality and the energy and childlike fun that you have on that stage sometimes. I'm literally just like, yow, like, go, Michael.
That's exactly what I feel like. I'm just getting started.
Yay.
I have to remind myself that it's been that long. And I feel like a child. I feel like in wonder and in awe, moment by moment, that I get to be an instrument for this kind of inspiration and transformational knowledge. It's a very, I feel privileged.
Well, you've created this, and here you stand so in such a brilliant declaration of what you believe in. And one of the reasons I'm so grateful to have you on this show with me and have this conversation is, hey, I'm just going to tell you, I'm tired, I'm sleepy, I'm bored with so much of what I hear. I'm just tired of it. And I mean, even in the spiritual realm, even in the sacred realm, even in the political realm. And what I appreciate about what you do is you bring it so deeply and in such an original way that, I mean, the truth is the truth. And yet, again, the truth is continuously unfolding, as we know. And you're up to date. You're current. You're bringing it. You're in the future, bringing it to us, and that's what I'm so excited about because as I say, I'm sick of it. I'm bored, but not when it comes to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
So let's get to some of it. Let's talk about Revelations. I mean, that's coming up, and I want to really get to that. And your theme of Revelations is extremely exciting to me, and that's sort of leads right into what I was just saying. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the unlearning.
Absolutely. The Revelation Conference, I've been hosting this now over 20-something years. And we began, of course, a number of years ago by infusing the music, the creative arts with the message. having moments of dialogue with individuals, creating work exercises so that individuals were not just doing a talking heads a seminar or conference and then leaving. And so we basically, a number of years ago, just spearheaded the whole movement of the infusion of the music with the message, along with creating an atmosphere for people to really be transformed. And now, after 20 years, many people have picked up on what we have put down over the years. So there's a lot of similarities that people have kind of mimicked a lot of things that we have done. But we're still going strong. People travel from all over the world to be a part of this particular gathering. We don't call it a conference. We can't call it a seminar. We just call it a revelation gathering, because it's transformational. It's in the moment. It's spontaneous. On the program, it says a program subject to change based on the spontaneity of the spirit.
Oh
So
my God. Thank God, literally.
so even though in a moment, even though we have a program, it's set, you can get the program. I may change it in a moment. Something may be emerging. Some dialogue may need to happen. An exercise may need to take place. A song may needs to be sung, and it'll emerge out of that field. And so it's dynamic. It's alive.
And it's also like you're saying, with all of that, and just the vibe and the feeling, and you're so beautiful in tuning into the people. So something, like you say, is needed at that moment, and something new will happen just at that moment, because something from just before, it's just like you're a conductor. You are a conductor.
Right. It's something gets sparked in the gestalt of the room, and then we have to go deeper with that. We have to change. And the speakers are very flexible about that, and our artists are really flexible. And Ricky is very creative in the moment with what song to come up with or what artist to bring up with to infuse the moment with that. So it's very powerful. So this year I chose the theme "Listen and Unlearn," and both of those are very, very important, because people have lost the art of listening. Listening is a lost art. People have a tendency to not even listen to each other. They will already be formulating in their minds what they're going to say when the other person finishes speaking, rather than being in that sweet spot of really listening and embracing the person that they're with.
Yeah.
So that's one level of listening. And then there's listening that, as I teach, there's the ear behind the ear, which is cognition. And then there's the ear beyond the ear, which is consciousness. And so we're going to be inviting people and bringing them into an awareness of how to listen with your consciousness, how to listen with the depth of your being, so that your intuitive faculties and your direct knowing faculties are activated. And then in a pre-initiation stage of transformation, it's called unlearning. And that is, you begin to put yourself in a position to unlearn things that you thought were true that are running your life. It was Mark Twain that said something along the lines of, it's not what we know to be true that hurts us. It's not what we don't know that hurts us. It's what we do know that isn't so.
Exactly.
And, so,
that quote.
Yeah, we're going to help people unlearn what they've come to know that isn't true about themselves. Unworthiness, sense of lack, limitation, scarcity, separation, fear, doubt, worry. There's so much that people have learned that isn't true, that we now need to unlearn it.
Thank you so much at this time for bringing this particular message forward. I say for myself, and I know for everyone I know. And I'm actually holding right now, you can't see, but I'm holding the Manifesto of Peace. And that's your book,
yes,
as you might remember. And I just feel like this was written right after September 11th, and I feel it's as important now as it's ever been. Don't you?
Oh, absolutely. It was not a reaction. I mean, it was definitely wrote after the 9/11 situation, but they're universal truths that I write from. I don't write from just my opinion about something, but mainly about what's eternally and universally true that can be applied in any given day. So you can read it today, and those truths about peace, which is a dynamic of harmonizing good, are still applicable.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, with everything that's going on in the world today, for example, as I'm reading this book, I feel like it's so important to, again, with the unlearning and the sort of allowing the knowing to come through softly, like a little bird in the hand, because the knowing that we know just keeps changing. For example, people think they know what's in the Quran or what that's all about, but most people don't actually know. And so again, with the unlearning and the allowing for new information to float through all the time, whether it be with nutrition, whether it be with, the whole aspect of politics. In this book also you talk about sacred politics, or spiritual politics actually. And I love what you say in this book about that, because I do believe that as human spiritual people, if we want to label ourselves as anything, that it does mean, and this was actually one of my questions for you, how to sort of walk the line of being an activist, a person who isn't on the sidelines anymore, because there aren't actually any sidelines anymore, and how we sort of walk through the life without having pain and anguish, and yet the desire to bring our gifts to change, not even change, to, because that's again the thing. It's like if we even say change, it means that there's wrongness, So it's how to really place ourselves in the spiritual walk through our todayness. So
Right. It's a narrow path, and what comes to mind is something that Dr. King said, and that is we have a dual citizenship. We have a citizenship in time, and we have a citizenship in eternity, but our home is in eternity. Which means as beings, spiritual beings having a human incarnation, we are here on the planet at this particular time to bring the eternal into time. So with all manner of things going on in the world, we have to ask, what is our role where the old energies are breaking up and the new energies are emerging? What is it that's mine to do? And everyone has something to do. Everyone's something is not the same as everyone else. Some people are to be out on the streets and having a sense of righteous indignation, calling attention to what's wrong. Some people are to articulate the vision of what's possible. Some people are to be architects of the new world in medicine, in education, in the justice system, and things of this particular nature, in nutrition. Everyone has a role to play. The universal presence did not make extra people with nothing to do.
right.
So what we have to do is everyone has to find out what it is that's theirs to do. And then when you look at the world and you see the world of phenomena, you see the cacophony of noise and music in the same space. You see the noise of that which is decadent, falling apart, and the music of that which is universal and beautiful arising. You see systems that no longer work, collapsing in front of us. You see things that can no longer be tolerated, being put into the field so that we can all see it. When all of this is going on, there with spiritual practice, there's a way of not reacting to it negatively, but responding to it from the eternal within our soul. Now that takes a level of practice, because without a level of spiritual practice, we'll just react to negativity that takes place. We'll get angry. We'll have a high level of pissosity, and ultimately that will burn ourselves out, and it will create deep fissures of separation.
Exactly.
But as we learn to respond to a vision of what's possible, and we begin to articulate what's possible and then walk in that direction, the new energies that are emerging are always more powerful than the old energies that are decadent and no longer serves us. Whether that's in the area of ethnicity, race relationships, homophobia, the gap between the rich and the poor, greed, selfishness, that which is real and eternal is always more powerful than that which is emanating from a sense of separation. So to be a peace maker, we have to find that dynamic of peace within our own heart and soul, find our place in the world, and then we become peacekeepers. You see, we have to make the peace within ourselves, and then we keep the peace by our thought, our word, and our actions. Yeah.
beautiful. And being an emissary for peace and an ambassador, and, you know, having that declaration for staying in that place that is light, 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 that pillar of light. I think of, I'm reading this book right now by the Wright brothers that just came out, and I'm thinking about those guys and how they were really loved by the people around them, their family and their friends, and they just had such a purpose. You were using the word purpose earlier, so it made me think of that. And every day they would wake up, and they had regular day jobs, and then they would every other moment work on their experiments, and they quote unquote failed many, 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 many times, but just stayed with it and stayed with it. And there was so much joy around them all the time, and people loved them so much. And yet, you know, and then because of their brilliance and their tenacity staying with it, then of course we have a beautiful invention. So I think of that with, again, with the purpose, and when you're saying about what's mine to do, if we all do that, then there's really never any reason for jealousy for one of the, you know, 7 deadly sins. We can just take that one, check that one right off, like forget about that one.
Absolutely. Jealousy and envy, malice and rivalry. Those are called, we call those the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And they emanate from a deep sense of separation when an individual is separated in their mind from their good, from their God, from their presence. Then those things can arise, jealousy and envy and malice and rivalry. And as you said, once you begin to understand that you're needed and you're wanted by the universe, you know, people don't get this, that they're wanted and needed. They looked for it from human beings. They looked for it from their mother or father. Sometimes they got it, sometimes they didn't. They look for it from their friends or family. But when you begin to understand that you're actually wanted and needed by the universe as the next stage of human evolution, and you begin your mornings with, I'm needed and I'm wanted. And then I am connected. What's mine to do? What gift am I to give? Now I'm a holy response to the phenomena of separation that arises in the world. People sometimes will say, you know, why doesn't God do something about the issues that are going on the planet? And I say, well, that's why God sent you.
Perfect. I love that.
The answer. You're the answer.
The answer is you.
Yeah, you carry the full imprimatur of the whole spirit within you. You're the representation of God. You're the representation of peace. You're an emissary of peace. You've been sent. What is yours to do? And so if we stop delaying, waiting for some deity in the sky to come do it, and realize we've been sent by the universe. We've been sent, and we volunteered.
Because that's why it came to us. I love that. Thank you. And there's so many quotes and things I have around here that I would absolutely love to read from, like from The Power of the Heart, and so many of your books. Actually, I have here also Spiritual Liberation. But I also want to say something about reality and, you know, what is truth and what is reality. And I've been doing some studies about that lately. Look, just for the eyes, for example, like a dog has 2 cones, and the dog sees a reality that's a certain reality. We as humans have 3 cones. There are a few mutants that have 4. You probably have 4. But most people have 3. And we see exponentially more than a dog. Well, is our reality more? I mean, and then there's the butterfly, which has been the symbol of transformation and spirituality and everything for thousands of years. Well, of course, science catches up. And what we now know about the butterfly is that it has many more cones and like kind of eye facets on the cones. So what a butterfly sees is something we will in our lifetime never be able to see, unless I guess some people do hallucinogens or whatever. And what's reality is what the butterfly sees a bit, you know, it's a different reality than ours. So what in the daylights is really reality? And we hold on to what we think so strongly.
Well, here's the deal. As you're just indicating, most people don't see reality. They see their thoughts and their perceptions about reality. So the dog is seeing and experiencing his thought about reality. Human beings are seeing and experiencing their thought about reality. A butterfly is seeing and experiencing its thought about reality, but reality hasn't changed. It's just our perception of reality. So when an individual enters into spiritual practice and they enter into a prayer, real prayer, not begging or beseeching, but real prayer, they enter into meditation, they enter into life visioning, what they're doing is they're expanding their perception to see more of what's real. And that they are beginning to see, not with their physical eyes, which has three cones. They're beginning to see with their awareness, which is infinite. So this is why individuals that have a level of spiritual awakening see more than other people. You know, we can look out. When I had my first awakening as an adult, I had some as a child, but as an adult, when I died in that lucid dream and woke up, I could see that everything was shining, animate and inanimate, with a glow, with a light, and a beauty that was so profound, and a love that was so intense. I could see this everywhere. And throughout my life since then, I go in and out of that particular phase or that particular state of consciousness, sometimes more intense than others. But I know that I'm not seeing with my eyes. I'm seeing with consciousness.
Yes.
And the light and the brilliance and the love and all of the truth that we've been taught, that we're living and moving and having our beingness in this grand presence of love and beauty. It's absolutely true, you see. And so the person that can't see it says, well, I need evidence. I need physical evidence, you see. And so we call them dimensionally challenged because they're locked in 2 or 3 dimensions with 3 cones, and they're stuck in that particular reality, and that's their whole world. And so they're dimensionally challenged. Others who have broke free have a much wider viewpoint of reality, and they're not as challenged, and though they have much more opportunities to express their divinity than others.
And what's so great about that, thank you for sharing that, and what's so expansive about that reality or that worldview or point of view is that it makes living a lot more fun and a lot more like exhale, because when we have these rigid, concrete, calcified concepts in our minds, in our bodies and everything, it's just like, I just want to crack through all of this and just let it all go and know that there is, and hey, I may not see it because I only have 3 cones, but just knowing that the butterfly sees so much more allows me to know that yes, my reality from my sunny Chayes-ness right here is just whatever it is today, but
Yes.
in 4 days or next week or even after or during this conversation, it's
Yes.
shifting even, and let's have fun with it even.
Absolutely. I mean, the moment you go into prayer, you're changing that. You're changing your perception. And that's why you really pray. You pray not to ask some God to bless you because you have received all the blessings. You are praying to expand your perception so that you can be receptive to the blessings that have already been given. So absolutely, we're here to absolutely change our perception from perception to vision, and then participate in a much larger vision for our life.
Yay. Well, and speaking of someone who does that, it just came to my mind to speak about something that Martin Luther King said many years ago. Again, with what people think is reality, most people think of him as a civil rights activist, but he was actually speaking of many, many things, as you know so well. And so one of the things that he spoke a lot about was things like, it's fine, this is paraphrasing, but it's fine for a Negro little girl to be able to drink milk at this certain counter, this milk in this drugstore or whatever. But if it has strychnine 90 in it, then what are we doing? And again, I'm completely putting my sunniness on it. But, so he was talking about things then, and even about war, and, people be careful about where you point guns, because at some point they will be pointed back. So again, even with Martin Luther King being much more expansive than most of us think, which I think is awesome.
Tremendous. He broke ecumenical bondage and it was moving towards a very large awareness of the presence of which he called agape, unconditional love. It was the civil rights movement that he was pulled into, but he was into exploring a much larger metaphysical and mystical awareness of God. One of the things he said was, we're fighting to integrate into this house, but maybe the house is burning down.
Yes.
That's one of the things that he said. He said maybe we're fighting to integrate a burning house, because he was speaking of the values of the Western society of greed and materialism, consumerism, warmongering, military-industrial system, colonialism, this type of thing. And so he was thinking that maybe we're becoming integrated into a burning house because these other values were just as important as integration. What are we integrating into? What kind of values? do we want our children to be raised with? See,
Exactly.
and so we have to look at that, because
Yes.
when you turn on your television set, you're bombarded with pharmaceuticals, you're bombarded with all manner of consumerism that will not change your life one iota.
Yes, and just fill our landfills with unnecessary products. And I think of when you're saying that, it makes me think of a time when I lived in Africa. I lived in South Africa and then Maseru, Lesotho. And what I noticed there was, and I was pretty young, I was 17, and what I noticed was the astounding sacredness of people of the Ndebele tribe and the Bantu tribe, and how they operated. And my family actually lived with the Bushmen, and what went on there. And then when the Gods Must Be Crazy came out, it was like, people, they really are like that. Like, that's not Hollywood. I mean, that's how pure these people actually are. And so I think of when you're saying that about Martin Luther King saying about that, I'm thinking, yeah, sometimes we get a little holier than thou, literally, but there are many ways of living the life. And open up, people, open up.
Absolutely. You're speaking about perception, and a couple of things. The American people, I mean, this is true of other Western countries as well, but less than 10% of the American population even has a passport. So they never even get out and see other perceptions of the world. And secondly, individuals watch hours and hours of television that shape their perception according to a worldview that may not have anything to do with reality, but just may have something to do with the powers that be and how they want you to think. And so it's kind of a mass, subtle, and sometimes not so subtle hypnotic spell that keeps people in fear and separation. And instead of being creators, they become consumers. And many of these people, 80% or 90% of people, have never even left the country to see what another part of the world even looks like, or what another perception of the world looks like. And many people never will. They will die within 40 miles of where they were born, having the same thoughts that their parents or grandparents had, catch the same diseases that their parents and grandparents had, and die with the same opinions that their parents and grandparents had. So it's almost a life that almost didn't need to be lived, because there was no transformation.
Yeah, yeah.
You see? And
When another thing that makes when you're speaking of that, I was thinking of my son when he was about 9 or 10, and we were having elections, and he said to me, "Mom, are we Democrat or Republican?" And I said, "Well, honey, it's not a DNA thing," although I think some people think it is. And so I sort of explained the two parties, and then he made his choice, and I won't share, although I'm sure you people probably know what it would be. But I just found that so amusing, because don't you agree? It's sort of the philosophies are handed down, just like you're saying.
It's like I think it was Emerson that said something like that the parties and the religions are sophisticated clubs that people join so they don't have to think.
Yes.
So you could just join the church your parents join. You can join the party your parents join. You can go to the same clubs your parents join, so that you can abdicate your role in thinking. It's already thought for you. There's the ticket already printed for you, who to vote for. You don't have to do any research. You don't have to do any research into the candidate to see if you really agree. Here are your pre-digested thoughts about religion, and you don't have to think about it at all. We've already got it for you. So you have this large group of people that's never traveled, never studied, never explored their own opinion and where they got it from. Again, that goes back to unlearning.
Yes.
They've learned something that they think is true, but it may be time to unlearn some of those things now and ask, where did this thought come from? Why do I think this thought?
Yes. I mean, to think that people were actually burned at the stake for not believing or not knowing that the earth was flat. I mean, these kinds of things, it just absolutely amaze me. One thing that you said a number of times, and I actually do, is speak with people who don't agree with you. Like, just have a conversation with people who don't agree with you, because not only is that just kind of a cool thing to do, I've spoken to Marianne Williamson about this a lot, because we always are talking about, we sort of speak to the choir, to our community, and it's like, okay, but how do we get out more, out more? Well, one of the ways, I think, is just all of us, let's, what was that thing, take our children to lunch. Let's have like one day a week. Let's you chat with people who are on the opposite party of us or something.
Yeah, I think that you do that in reading.
Mm-hmm.
You read something that stretches your mind and you may not necessarily agree with. You have dialogue, not debates, but dialogue with people that have a different point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what stretches us all to have a wider perception of reality. But
Mm-hmm.
most people are very comfortable only hanging around with people that have the exact perception that they have.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to a study today, as a matter of fact, that said that people who use Facebook come in contact with about 30% of people who don't share their same point of view. So it's stretching people's dialogue because they're in conversation with people they don't know and don't agree with. And for those who can maintain a level of civil conversation without, go into hate bashing, it's a very powerful thing to do, to be able to stand in dialogue, searching for truth with somebody you disagree with. That's a very, very powerful stance.
I listen sometimes to, because I do this show, and plus I just love to listen to people chat. I like to chat myself, but I like to listen to other people do it. And I will sometimes, if I'm going on a long trip driving, I'll turn on stations, like I might be in the country and I'll listen to country stations or, just different, or people who I really am very, very opposed to. But I'll listen to their conversation and then their callers in and what they're all, and how they're bashing the left or they're getting into this whole thing. And I find it very, very informative and sometimes highly entertaining. It's like, whoa, they're really getting hot about that.
Yeah, it's always entertaining. And sometimes, a broken clock works twice a day. In many cases, I can understand their perception, whether I agree with it or not. I can develop a level of compassion and understanding for the perception.
Yes.
And see, I don't believe that everyone is either totally conservative or totally liberal. I think that there are parts of us that are very liberal and there are parts of us that are conservative. We're like a mixed bag, but the way the conversation takes place, it's polarized. So you can't have a dialogue. You can't say, I really agree with most of what this being is saying, but this issue here, I don't really agree with that. We have to take it all or take none of it. That's the way the conversation is set up. And so we end up with childish politics, like the Congress acting like they're junior high schoolers, because, it has to be opposition politics, which is a deep sign of immaturity, rather than embracing a higher level of dialogue, which is much about peacemaking and peacekeeping. And so that's why most progress in society does not come from the government. It comes from the people, insights that small groups of people have, and then they move something forward, and then people jump on it, or it comes from a third party. Every great thing has basically come from a third party. It's never come from an established party anyway, because they're stuck in status quo. So it's really the people that have to think outside the lines.
That's it. And I think it's so important for everyone to remember that, because, again, there is no they. It's like when you say they are going to fix the education problem. Or hello, people, you are they and they are you. So get with it. Find out what's going on. And when Marianne was running for Congress and we're sort of talking about politics more, it became a conversation that filtered into the sacred spiritual land. And some people were saying, well, I'm just not educated enough. And what I would tell people is find something that you're passionate about. Maybe it's food, maybe it's GMOs, maybe it's animals, maybe it's whatever, and find out what's up with those programs or those bills that are happening, and read about them, find out about them, and vote for 3 things. You don't have to vote for 72, but just get into the conversation, and believe me, you feel better. But just having that passion and using your voice. I mean, so many people have died all over the world for the right to vote, and in this country, and it gets me a little frustrated that we have, I feel that your people are telling you have to leave me.
Absolutely. That's why democracy is called a participation government, even though parties that be want to keep people from participating in terms of illegally eliminating people from the polls or making it difficult for people to vote, or miseducation with ads and things of that particular nature. But people have to stay on their game, and they have to participate and go, and you participate for the long run, not for the short run, not jumping out of the game simply because something didn't go your way one time. But as you say, you feel better if you participate and put your voice in, put your vote in, put your word in, put your action in. You know, don't just take up space. Allow for your incarnation to mean something. You know,
a declaration of some kind, and then again that perhaps may grow, or perhaps a person will stay in that one place of animal rights or Monsanto or whatever it is. But again, to be able to know that that there are no sidelines, there is no they, and as sacred activists that we all, I believe, feel that we are, and when that purpose does get enlightened and lit up, and the fire starts, like the Wright brothers or you or me or anybody, that is really where the vitality comes from. And I think that's where the real truth comes in. There's not a separation in that, because one really feels, whoa, I'm just doing what's mine to do. I'm just doing what's mine to do.
Everybody has to do with it. You know, many years ago, we coined the phrase spiritual activism, and it morphed into sacred activism. That was the Association for Global New Thought and Agape International, because we were very involved, particularly Agape, because I came from, you know, with my parents' civil rights background and doing wonderful activist work. So it was always a part of our community to be a part of, whether it's the homeless issue or the environmental issue or the adoption issue, whatever the issues were. We were not trying to not be in the world. We wanted to be in the world, but be of a higher vision. And so those particular phrases now, spiritual activism and sacred activism, are now a part of the language. They're part of the language.
The lexicon, yes, at this point.
Of our society. And I remember when it was new.
Yes.
I remember being criticized 20-something years ago about doing that kind of thing. He says, well, you're supposed to be metaphysical. You're supposed to be mystical. You don't need to be involved in the world. And but now you know, you have to be like Gandhi or King. You have to have a vision. You have to articulate it, and you have to indeed find what is yours to do and take a stand and act about it in the world. Whether you are changing the environment by creating peace by your fork, by what you eat, whether you're anchoring yourself in a fundamental prayer, meditation, or whether you're cleaning up the environment, cleaning up the beaches, whether you're taking a stand for peace, whatever it is, you have to find your place, and you have to articulate that vision. You have to walk in that direction.
And what I love about, yes, I agree with you, and thank you
we're
for
going to
saying
have to.
that. We have to wrap this up. I know you're a busy man, and Revelations is coming up, and I just want to sort of round that out by saying that what you do at Agape and everything that you just said, of course, it does start with each individual, and by each individual having that real, peace, but to such a deep level where it is about, I am okay, I am loved, I do matter, I do have a purpose. That person, me, you, all the people, as we walk through the world, that opens up an opportunity for a much bigger peace, a much truer wanting of good food, wanting of clean water, wanting of great things for all of our children, like the Native Americans work with 7 generations out, knowing that our difference, our little movements, our big movements, our words, our hearts, our deeds do make a difference. And we, as the power of one, as I like to say, do make a difference all the time.
Absolutely.
And so that is what I feel so much when I go to Agape. Not only is it the most happening place I've ever been to. I mean, honestly, every time I go, I'm like, there's nowhere else I'd rather be than where I am right now.
Well, I appreciate that. And just to remind the people that major gathering called Revelation, Listen and Unlearn, is May 28th through the 31st at the LAX Marriott. People will be traveling in from around the world, around the country, plus our local congregation will be there with our artists, our musicians, our wonderful presenters, Joe Dispenza, Panache Desai, Dr. Sue Morter, myself, and others. So everyone has now a personal invitation from the founder of Agape to be at the conference, to be at the gathering, to be at the wonderful
Happening.
experience.
The happening, where we have no idea what's really going to happen, but we know it's going to be a happening. And
It's going to be good.
And it'll be good. And bless you and thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining us on Singing in the Rain today. Have an
Thank you. We're going
Thank
to
you.
continue to, and it rained today in LA.
It did rain today. We're
Very
singing
happy.
in the rain.
Singing in the rain. Have a beautiful day, Sonny.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Michael.
Bye.
Hi, guys. So that was the amazing, incredible Michael Bernard Beckwith, who was with us and had to dash off because he is a very busy man and he had to roll. But, you know, I want to say that I really, really want to honor you, Michael, because you are a person who really went before so many. I mean, for your social activism and sort of giving people the permission and the leadership in many areas of our lives, like, you know, in the activism world, metaphysics, spirituality, and churches and all of those areas to really take a stand and be more active. And I'm finding it all over the place, and I know you are, and I really want to honor you for that. And I also want to tell you guys that I really, really recommend that you come to Revelations. You know, when you experience something live, it is so different. If you see a real painting, if you see a Degas or a Picasso or a Matisse in real life in a museum, if you're lucky enough to see it in someone's home even, it is such a different experience. Or a dance concert or music concert. It's so different than sort of seeing it two-dimensional. And also bringing your love and your energy and your joy and your personness to the event is really your gift to the event too. So I highly, highly recommend that you guys come to it. And even when you're in town, to go to Agape, because it is not like anything else on earth. So I really want to recommend that you guys do that. And I also want to tell you about the June event, which is the June meditation retreat, which I think this year I'm going to do. It's about breathing, chanting, yoga, and sitting in silence with Michael and Ricky for a few days. It's actually June 25th through June 28th. And go online, Agape Live, to see the details for that. I know there are spaces still available for that. And again, Michael, I really want to just honor you for what you do. And again, this book I absolutely love, The Manifesto of Peace. This is one of your quotes from that, which I really love this. If we want to have a heart as wide as the world, if we want the vibration of global care to express through us, there are penetrating questions that an emissary of peace places before the tribunal of his/her consciousness, or conscience, actually. That just gives me the chills, and that's sort of where we are, to ask those penetrating questions to ourselves. And there's one other quote that I want to actually read from this amazing movie that you did with Baptiste Pop, The Power of the Heart, which I recommend everyone seeing. There are many beautiful people in this movie, including Michael Bernard Beckwith. And in this book, The Power of the Heart, he says, in order to tap into the wisdom of the heart, we have to listen. Lowly listening. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, be still, turn within, and be aware that the answers are not out there somewhere in the world. The answers, the intuitive guidance, the wisdom, it's here. So again, guys, check out The Power of the Heart, check out Revelations, check out everything at Agape. And again, I really, really want to honor you, Michael, for what you do and for coming to the show Skype-wise. And the next time, I hope you come in person and you can clink glasses with me. So you have an invitation, a standing, sitting, meditating, breathing, chanting invitation to come back here anytime. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for everything you've brought to me and for the millions of people around the world who continue to feel your ripple effect. I love you to pieces, and this is Sunny Chayes with Singing in the Rain. Until next time, remember, you have the power of one. Bye-bye for now.